Hey guys, Kiwi here. In this video, I'll be breaking down the Nicholas death from the Walking Dead comics during All Out War Part 2, along with predicting who will be taking his place during Season 8B of the TV show. With that being said, major warning of spoilers for everything in the show up to the most recent episode, the Season 8 mid-season finale, along with issues 122 to 126 of the comics, and let's jump right into this. Now, just like during episode 808 of the show, in the comics Negan attacked Alexandria, but he actually retreated due to Maggie and the Hilltop coming to the rescue and shooing them away with bullets. So although Maggie couldn't come to the rescue in the show, the Alexandrians are just waiting out in the sewers until the Saviors eventually clear out and go home. So as Negan and the Saviors return back to the Sanctuary after blowing up Alexandria, Rick and gang decide to move to the Hilltop alongside the Kingdom as they agree that they are stronger in numbers. The conversation between Rosita, Dwight, and Daryl in the sneak peek for episode 809 confirms that they will plan to relocate to the Hilltop when the time is right, and that apparently all of them together will be Negan's worst damn nightmare. So, as all of the good guys combine forces at the Hilltop, they await Negan's next move, but what will it be? Well, they'll most likely just attack the Hilltop in similar fashion to Alexandria, but I feel like Negan will have a trick or two up his sleeve in order to give himself an upper hand. Also, it'll be pretty boring if we just saw a bunch of battles that were exactly the same, so hopefully ideas such as Negan coating weapons with zombie guts is enough to switch things up and add in some fresh ideas. Now, what is the deal with Negan putting zombie guts on weapons? For more information, I highly suggest checking out my recent video where I discuss Negan putting walker guts on savior weapons in order to effectively poison them. This is what idea Negan comes up with in the comics, and I feel like we'll definitely see this soon in the show, considering that the 809 promo shows what looks like the same scene where Negan explains this idea. So, if Negan coats every single weapon that the Saviors have with zombie guts, that makes them even more deadly than ever before. Now, while some Saviors only have melee weapons, someone like Dwight will actually be able to coat his crossbow bolt with walker guts in order to effectively poison someone at long range. In my previous video, I discussed how Dwight actually shoots Rick with a crossbow bolt, leaving everyone to assume that Rick is infected and going to die. Now, in the comics, there actually aren't too many main characters who die off due to the weapons coated in zombie guts. I feel like Rick potentially dying was the main focus of it, as it would truly prove whether or not they could trust Dwight. So although the main focus is Rick getting shot, who else could bite the dust during this attack? Nicholas was sadly slashed in the back while trying to get Rick to safety, and he ends up passing away. Nicholas was kind of an asshole, but he had a wife and a kid, and it was still sad to see him go. Besides Nicholas, we don't really experience any other major death here. We see a bunch of red shirts die off, such as a red shirt Kingdom soldier by the name of Marcus, who gets stabbed. Michonne actually saves him by killing the Savior and they get back to safety, but he sadly dies off alongside all the other red shirts due to being poisoned by all the Savior weapons. Alright, let's jump into the meat and potatoes of this video. Who could die from this? Will we see any main characters bite the dust? First off, there's Daryl. I don't really think it'll happen, but I guess this is more about his character than the situation he's in, but at this point he's pretty much becoming an empty shell of what he used to be. He constantly gets into trouble and he doesn't learn his lesson, at least he doesn't seem to. I've seen so many complaints about pissed off fans who disagree with his rash decision making. That's what got him caught by Dwight at the end of Season 6, he punched Negan and that's what got Glenn killed, and then him crashing the truck into the Sanctuary with Tara forced the Saviors to fight for freedom instead of just staying trapped and starving until they surrender. I feel bad insulting Daryl because, God forbid I talk down everyone's favorite character, but enough is enough, to be honest. I honestly loved Redneck Daryl back from Seasons 1 to 4, maybe even Season 5 in Terminus, but after Beth died, he just sort of became a long-haired greaser who grunts under his breath all the time. Either fix this character and bring some life back into him by Season 5, give him a story arc other than, oh, I don't like Dwight, or just kill him off and give it some meaning, please. Next up, I wanted to mention Tara. Some say that she's quirky and funny, while others say that she's annoying and a waste of time. I enjoy how different she feels as a character, but I definitely do roll my eyes at her sometimes. Although it would be possible for her to die, and some say that she's even overstayed her welcome, I feel like she's needed for Oceanside and that her death in Season 8 could be a wasted potential. She could have died earlier on in the show, but now that they gave her that entire episode introducing Oceanside and she's really the only person that they know, it would just be a waste to kill her off before she can pay off the fact that she set up Oceanside. She honestly has a potential long-term relationship set up with that Sydney girl because they definitely have chemistry whenever they're on screen together, and I could see them being the connecting trust between Oceanside and Alexandria in the New Beginning, or even at the end of All Out War. Rosita was someone else who came to mind when I was thinking about a major death in the back half of Season 8, as they could give her some sort of badass story arc. She recently backed out of that plan with Daryl and Tara, so maybe she's finally coming around and learning not to rush into situations due to her own selfish needs and emotions. She was originally a rash character who went rogue left and right, but she could come around and sacrifice herself for the greater good somehow. Although that is possible, I feel like it would be too similar to Sasha's send-off, and I'm not talking about the coffin thing, but they would both be strong female characters who went rogue against Negan due to Abraham and other people dying, resulting in them getting redemption as they get killed off near the end of a season. It would just be too similar in my opinion, and Rosita's death would be better saved for seasons 9 or 10. Moving on, originally I was banking on Morgan taking the Nicholas death. Morgan originally died during No Way Out in the comics, so it's been up in the air how much longer he may or may not survive. People really seem to think that he'll die considering he's been a huge moral compass since his return in Season 6 with his "all life is precious" motto, and I personally believe that he would have been the better choice to kill off instead of Carl in order to convince Rick to spare Negan at the end of the season, but that's an entire video topic on its own that I actually plan on discussing in the near future. Now, when Morgan died in the comics, he was bitten in the arm, so Michonne cut it off, but he still bled out anyways. During his death, he talked to Carl and actually hallucinated him as Dwayne, which may or may not have worked on the show considering how old Carl is now. I mean, they did the whole sing me a song thing last season, but that may have been pushing it, and I guess it doesn't really matter anyway since Carl is bitten and going to die in episode 809. So anyways, Morgan could have possibly hallucinated that Sam kid from the Kingdom as Dwayne, but regardless, it would have been fitting to have Morgan able to talk to his people on his deathbed before he dies, just like the comics, and taking Nicholas's death from the comics would have allowed this. Sorry if that was a real roundabout way of explaining it, but I feel like it would have worked out well if Morgan was going to get killed off by the end of Season 8. And as far as the crossover goes, if Fear the Walking Dead Season 4 gets a time skip for Morgan to cross over after the end of Season 8, that confirms that he won't die in Season 8, but if they don't give Fear the Walking Dead a time skip and they instead use a previous version of Morgan, he could still die off in the show, so we'll have to wait and see. Sorry if that sounds confusing, but it kind of is, to be honest, and I don't think that they're going to kill off Carol simply because of the path her character has been pushed the past few seasons. She's been around a completely new cast for almost 2 full seasons since her and Morgan are the 2 characters to introduce the Kingdom into the show. She took a step back from the main group and she left to be alone due to not wanting to have to kill people in order to defend people that she cares about, but after getting roped into the Kingdom and learning how far spread the Savior's control truly is, she learned that she'll have to run into people and end up caring about them wherever she goes, and that it's better to fight alongside people for a better tomorrow than to live in solitude. And so I'm trying to think of more people who will probably be at the Hilltop for the final stand at the end of Season 8. As far as Jesus goes, he just simply hasn't had enough time to shine yet on the show. Although it's fairly obvious that TV show Jesus and comic book Jesus are 2 different counterparts, I want to see more badass Jesus on the show. I want to know more about his backstory, and I'd like to see more about Jesus actually being useful with his actions and his combat instead of just his ability to talk things out and break up fights. And then Michonne is honestly up in the air at this point. They already killed off Carl, so why not just kill off Michonne too, right? All jokes aside, I'd love to see her character survive the rest of the season because Rick really doesn't need a double whammy of depression. Michonne and Rick will need each other to push through the loss of Carl, and if you'd like to hear more on my opinion about how they will react to Carl's death, feel free to check out my video I have focused entirely on that. The furthest I could see them going is possibly switching up who Dwight pretends to poison with walker guts. In the comics, Rick gets hit by Dwight's crossbow bolt, but what if Michonne or someone else gets hit instead? There could be other fake-out deaths involving the weapons coated in walker guts, but if they're going to stick with Rick's main fake-out, that could honestly be enough to leave the audience baffled, especially if it's right after they killed Carl, like a few episodes after or so. And again, I'm just discussing a handful of the main characters here. I've left out people like Ezekiel or Maggie, even though they may be at the Hilltop when Negan attacks with the poisoned weapons, because I just simply don't have anything particularly interesting to speculate about them. They are most likely safe due to plot armor, and it would just be foolish to kill them off instead of letting them survive and ride out the story arcs that are so obviously planned out in front of them for future seasons. honestly, if a main character like Daryl or Tara doesn't get killed during the Hilltop attack, I'll be pretty disappointed. We need losses on both sides in order for this to be realistic, but the show is so caught up on making every death meaningful that it's almost giving our main characters plot armor, well, more than usual, I should say. I wouldn't even be surprised if they gave the Nicholas death to someone minor like Tobin or that other Alexandrian Scott, I believe, but let me know what you guys think down below. That being said, if there's anything I've missed, feel free to let me know, or even tell me of your own theories about who will die during Season B of The Walking Dead in the comments section below. I'm mainly focused on the final stand at the Hilltop, along with the weapons coated in Walker guts and Nicholas's death, but we could have some random character deaths somewhere else, so feel free to let me know what you guys think as well. I'd appreciate a like on the video if you've enjoyed anything I've said today, or even subscribe for more Walking Dead content in the near future. And if you'd like to take that extra step in helping support my videos, consider checking out my Patreon, where there's a bunch of different rewards involving the channel, such as a chance to directly influence the videos being produced. It isn't necessary by any means, but it could really help in the long run. And as always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.